race information on every car stop that we make. And our internal affairs officer evaluates that monthly as well to look for averages, norms, collectively, individually, and we're constantly on top of it. So, I would like to think that we're a model, and that, as far as that information being given, I'm open to anything, like I've said before.
Can I just say one other thing is the other thing that's been most astonishing about Ferguson is the complete lack of diversity and representation of the community in their police force. And I know that's something that's been on your radar screen for a long time, and while we're not where we want to be, it is something that we're working on all the time.
That's absolutely. That's one of our goals, part of our mission. And as we're starting to develop, we've talked about this in the past, but as we're starting to develop our strategic plan, I think that's the process that's going to involve the community even more, and you're going to have even more input from the community on what you want from the police department and what they want from the police department. And that's key to being proactive in an approach to avoid these types of situations, with the community being, not maybe as involved with the police department as they should be. And we want that. We absolutely want that. Community involvement is a key to our success, so we'll keep pursuing that. We'll never be satisfied with the amount that we have.
Yep.
Mr. Whitman?
Nick, seriously, Chief, question. This Canine Officer Harris is a excellent canine dog. He actually, when I went at the Red Umbrella at Community Park, his handler and him, he was there, Canine Officer Harris, and he does a lot. He sniffs out, explosives, sniffs out drugs, and he's going to be going to training to actually locate people. So if you have someone maybe with Alzheimer's and they're missing, he's going to be trained to actually trace their steps and find them. I mean, it is invaluable. This canine, I call him Canine Officer Harris. I guess I'm told to call him that, but Canine Officer Harris, roof. But I just want to say that I think he is a plus for the police department, and I agree with Councilman Butler that if I was on the committee and you came and said you want a bazooka or 2 bazookas and 2 tanks, I think everyone up here would say, "Are you crazy?" So I think that Princeton, they're in good hands with you at that panel.
We wouldn't know how to use them either. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lieberman. Is there anybody else? Yeah, Mr. Simon?
Just very briefly, Chief Setter, I do want to pass along that I've received, just as a member of council, praise for the community policing effort. And I simply want to pass along that from all accounts, it seems to be getting very high marks within the community. And so I want to express my appreciation, both as a member of council and just on behalf of the community, for that.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to us. Thank you.
Looking at the report, and I guess maybe building on Councilwoman Krumler's request, we have the UCR statistics. Is there any benchmarking at the state or national level that could tell us for similar communities of density as well as sort of profile in terms of income, et cetera, how we're doing as a community with respect to those types of standardized police?
Yes, absolutely. At both levels, we can benchmark statewide and nationally, and that's the best use for UCR is that standardizes those crimes across state lines so that we can benchmark.
And is that something we've done in the past, or is that something that you're considering doing with the department going forward?
We have done it, and I would say that most recently we did it during the consolidation process. We did a lot of benchmarking of the 2 former Princeton communities and where we stood, and kind of wanted to get a picture of where we were going to stand collectively. And it's probably about time now. We have enough data now to do that. So we certainly will we'll make that a part of our planning process going forward.
Okay, and related to reporting still, you mentioned in past reports some challenges working with the system that we're using to collect the data. Have you gotten past those, or do we still have sort of time to respond issues in terms of being able to report that specific set of statistics?
It continues to be a work in progress, and the software vendor has been very helpful in terms of trying to fix some of the issues we've had. And if you notice, we were able to get some comparisons now in a more clear picture. So he's been very responsive to us, and we're trying hard to make anything that mayor and council wants work. So I'm open to anything.
Okay, and then the last comment is really directed just in response to Councilwoman Butler. I think it may in many cases be a pull, not a push. And so if our police department doesn't ask for military equipment, we're not going to get any. And just to give something, a similar anecdote, just in terms of the local emergency planning committee considered asking for a military surplus vehicle, an amphibious vehicle that would help us dealing with flooding situations. We looked at that as an option, considered the cost, considered the practicality of it. But also, Bob Gregory spoke to PFARs and what they could do already in terms of the equipment they had. And the fact is they already feel they have the adequate equipment to be able to essentially cross a body of water if they need to, and that acquiring such a vehicle would actually be more trouble than it's worth and would not serve to assist the community meaningfully in that sort of situation. So it does come up in some reasonable context, and I think it gets the appropriate level of review when it does.
We were identified by, well, who? The state, federal?
State Homeland Security and state police.
It's not, we were identified. That's what that's...
I think we were identified because we were borrowing other canines because of the high use we had in our community. And if I remember correctly, I think this came recently after the Boston bombing, and we do have a lot of events here where we need to have a canine for those, Communiversity, for the half marathon, for other running events. And my understanding was when it's our canine officer, we have control over the situation, whereas if you're bringing someone in, and that was part of the issue when it happened at Palmer Square, it was not our police department's operation anymore. And you lose control, and it triples or quadruples the amount of time it takes, and it has a real impact on the community. And that was, something that we talked about in public safety, why this was such a win for us.
That's correct, Mayor. Just the two incidents briefly to bring to your attention was the Palmer Square incident, and right before that, maybe 2 weeks before, maybe a little bit more, we had the incident at Princeton University. And then we've had some others in the recent past. And when you're bringing in, you're correct, when you're bringing in outside resources, whether they're state, federal, or otherwise, you lose control of your protocol. So the protocol goes to that agency that's coming in with those resources, whether it be the state police, and they do things a certain way. That's what brought I believe what brought the state or brought us to their attention, that we were using the resources, and they said, hey, here's an opportunity for you to have some control over that. So you're right.
And if there's no other comments, I also want to just compliment, I thought that the report this month looked really nice. I found it was easy to read and get like an eyeball picture of things as opposed to pouring through
This was the first month
the Excel-like spreadsheet to try to figure out what things meant. So I appreciated, I like the colors. So nice job. Thank you. Okay, how are we doing on time? Do we need to take a Heather Howard stretch break for 2 minutes? All right.
Probably advisable.
We've been in a meeting since 5:30, so I think we're just going to take a seventh inning. Let's just stand up for 1 minute.
The mayor is referencing the fact that I have raised the concern of the deleterious health effects of sitting too long. But while we're doing that, should I do a report?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, this wasn't like a real break. It was more just like a stretching break.
That's okay. I'll update you later, Pat. I just want to raise the point that there have been 5 positive rabid bats over the last 10 days, and so that's an increase over past years, and it's actually consistent with increased incidents nationwide, and maybe due to a cooler summer that we're having, and also perhaps the fact that we have it may be more acute in Princeton because we have older housing stock, so they're more likely to find, bats are more likely to find openings in eaves and stuff. So our health department and our police have been working together and getting the word out about the importance of folks being aware of the risks, as we know how scary rabies is, but just wanted that to report that. We can't draw too much attention, I think, to this issue, given that we know that rabies is nearly 100% fatal. And so the fact that there are increased incidents is something that is of great concern, and there have been press releases on our website, but I just want to continue to draw attention to that issue. Thank you.
Wait, what should we do if we see a bat that's...
So you should call the police department. Do not touch the bat. The most important thing is do not touch a bat. Do not touch any animal that is acting erratically, but especially do not touch any bats. And call the police department, and and our animal control officer will come, or a police officer. And there was actually a great letter to the editor recently about how, and Nick, we should have complimented you in the department as well on how the cases have been handled, because in each of these cases, the good news is that each of the known exposures received treatment, so there was no threat to the public health. But we really do need to educate the community because of these increasing risks. So don't touch any animals. Call the police department, and somebody will come.
And the other important thing is they don't want you to shoo the bat out the window.
That's right, because you
then
need to
they
do the
can't
testing.
test it for rabies. So they really want...
If you can close it up,
Okay.
don't touch it, but you're right. If you get it out the window, then you'll never test it, and they'll assume you've been exposed, and you'll have to be treated for rabies, which is very painful. You
You can get rabies even if you're not bitten?
Well, the point is also, you may not know you're bitten. You may not know. It can be a scratch, or it can be very, very minimal contact. And so because it's nearly always fatal, they're always going to treat you.
I think also that bats that are rabid are a lot of times you'll see during the day.
That's right, when you wouldn't
well,
normally see that. There was also a rabid raccoon at the community park pool, and the rec department handled it very professionally and quickly. So the good news is that all of our municipal staff are very well aware and are handling this, but it is very scary.
Thank you for that report. Ms. Kremlin?
Jenny, do you have a positive report?
Oh, no. No, I don't
Ms.
have any
Miller?
report.
I can't rival the Batman report, but I have a couple of quick reports. First of all, the Comcast franchise negotiating team, which is chaired by Peter Thompson from the Cable TV Advisory Committee, met on the 24th of July and prioritized the issues to be negotiated with Comcast, and I won't read them all to you. The negotiating team then met with Rob Clifton as our special counsel Steve Goodell pointed out earlier this evening on the 20th of August, and Mr. Clifton then presented a proposed draft franchise ordinance and offer sheet, which included the technology grant that would be based on the length of the franchise. The negotiating team will obtain information from the State Office of Cable TV on other Comcast franchises and will review the terms, conditions, and legality of the proposed ordinance prior to meeting again with Mr. Clifton, and will make a recommendation to the mayor and the council. Secondly, I'd like to report, and this sort of fits in with what Councilwoman Howard had to say, report from the Animal Control Advisory Committee. The committee met on the 21st of July with legal counsel to the committee, Ms. Cecil. The purpose of the meeting was to review the deer call for 2013 and the roadkill for 2013 and preceding years, and to reach a consensus on a recommendation to council for the 2015 deer call program. Our data at that time of meeting was complete only through May, and wasn't really considered by the committee because it was incomplete data. In the memo that I distributed to Council earlier today, there's data on roadkill for the years 2000 through 2013, and it shows in 2000 we had roadkill of 342, and it decreased to a minimum of about 62 in 2007, stayed low, and then began to kind of creep back up again. Our animal control officer reported in 2014 white buffalo harvested 127 deer, and that the bow hunters, who we permit to hunt on our lands, took a total of 6 deer. Mr. Johnson reported that the white buffalo cull was less than in previous years because of adverse weather reducing the cull period by about almost a week. In reviewing the above data, Dr. DiNicola of White Buffalo commented that the roadkill, which we use as a surrogate for the deer population, had shown a steady decrease from 2000 to 2010. No professional culling was done in 2011, and as a result, the roadkill has started to increase. We did a remote deer population sampling as part of the 2013 program, and got an estimate of deer population of about 45 per square mile. We've had a target, historically, of about 25 per square mile. And these numbers indicate that unless our deer harvest increases in 2015 and successive years, until we get the population density down, the population density and roadkill will continue to increase in future years. In order to begin the process of reversing the population trend and getting it down toward the 25 per square mile, it's going to be necessary to increase the harvest in 2015 to nearly twice the number that were culled in 2014. And in order to get there, Dr. DiNicola has suggested a longer cull period and more access. He's given us a budgetary estimate of $93,800 for a 2015 deer culling program to achieve a cull of about 250 deer, and this compares to the cost in 2014 of $63,870. And it is the recommendation of the Animal Control Advisory Committee that Council support this number and budget the $93,800 in the 2015 budget.
Thank you for that report. I assume you'll be coming back to us with something left to vote on. Okay. Mr. Liebman?
No report.
Ms. Butler?
I just want to mention that the pool will again stay open 2 extra weekends in September after Labor Day, and will be open from noon to 6. We've had, this is the second August in a row when we've had almost no 90-degree days, so it's always a little bit of a bet as to whether there'll be much usage, but weighing all things, I think we feel like in case it is a warm September, it's worth it. People seem to enjoy it, even if it costs us a little bit.
Thank you. Mr. Simon?
Just very briefly, the Public Works Committee met earlier today, and just a little bit of information from that meeting. One is July was the first month where the town exceeded, the consolidated town exceeded 500 tons collection for residential garbage. And also the first month where we exceeded 40 tons for organic recycling collection. Both of those are highs. There are now in the neighborhood of 950 people participating in the organic recycling program, and I'm trying to subtract out in my head the people who are not paying when I do that, and so that's the ballpark figure. A couple other pieces of information from that meeting. One is we will be bringing to Council in September a recommendation for next year's organic recycling program, or maybe more like options. There's actually been debate within the committee about whether, for example, the fee should remain where it's at, or whether it should be reduced to zero, and we've been going back and forth on pros and cons for that. And so we'll meet again next month and then bring something before Council. Something else for Council to be aware of is basically the decommissioning of the facility right next door for Public Works. All maintenance for Public Works is now going through the Harrison Street facility, and that facility is overburdened. And it's logistically challenging at points. If they have a large vehicle that requires maintenance, it can block in whatever other vehicles are in bays, in other bays for the duration of the maintenance of the larger vehicle. So the Public Works Department has identified the changes that would be needed in terms of wall demolition and ventilation and wiring, and an anticipated budget of $35,000 to $40,000, and we've been assured that we have that information. We have that funding available in the budget. So there will be, the Public Works is likely to go forward with that, I think simply as an administrative action, but I wanted to make sure Council was aware of it, and if anyone on Council has any concerns, please let any one of the members of the Public Works Committee know. We'll certainly discuss that. And actually, the last thing, coming back to the residential garbage pickup, the numbers that we review in the committee, this is actually to Ms. Monso, the numbers that we review in the committee are compared to the budget from what we anticipated for as of the contract. But this year, we actually reduced the budget. So we actually don't have a column that compares how are we doing month by month versus this year's budget. So, and I mentioned this to Mr. Hoff in a recent conversation, but it was very off the cuff and informal, and I just want to mention it to you as well, and encourage you that maybe for our next meeting that you work with him to add that kind of a column so that we can actually see how we're doing versus this year's budget.
Yeah, we can make that change. In fact, we're meeting with all management team and departments this week on their next year's budget, so I'll make sure that that gets updated for you now so that we can, as we're going into the next budget season, you'll have that comparison.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful. The column that's there is actually helpful as well because it sort of advises us on how well we're doing versus where we thought we would be when we started the contract, but we do also want to see where we are because we adjusted this year's budget and just to see how we're doing against that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a few reports. The first one was just, I know we've spoken a lot about Ferguson tonight, but there's a group in town, not in our town, that's holding a community conversation at the library on Thursday evening to talk about the aftermath of that and what it means for Princeton. The other thing I wanted to report on was something that the Pedestrian and Bike Committee has been working on with funds from the Transit Trust Fund, which was set up by the money specified in the MOU as a result of the Dinky negotiations, and they're working on a bike map of Princeton, and we're in the final stages of it. It's something I'm really excited about for the pedestrian and bike booth at Communiversity. That's always the number one question that gets asked: is there a bike map of Princeton? So finally, the answer will be yes. And one of the final pieces the group is looking for is some artwork, either a photo or a piece of original art to put on the cover of the bike map. So I just wanted to get the word out there to the media that's still here that the Pedestrian and Bike Committee is soliciting original pieces of artwork that people are willing to donate. And if their artwork is chosen, it will be on every bike map in Princeton. I'm going to be doing a mayor's walk and talk this Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Hopefully the weather will be nice outside of, we're going to start at 8 a.m. outside of the community park tennis courts, and it'll be rain or shine. So if it's raining, bring your umbrella. If there's a thunderstorm, we'll make it a short walk. And I guess finally I wanted to, the mayor for the day is gone, but I wanted to wish all the kids a very happy end of summer and to make the most of the last week of freedom before school starts. And are there any staff reports?
Thank you, Mayor. I have three quick items to report on. One relates to the hospital site in Avalon Bay. The recycling work will be finished this week. Also, the roof flashing that contains asbestos. That has started to be removed as of Friday. That work will continue for the next 3 weeks. Proper monitoring equipment is in place. We have a team of Ira Whitman, Jeff Grosser, John Pettinotti, Jack West, and myself, who's been meeting once a week with them and then as well as spot checking the site. And in addition, either later this week or early next week, the videoing of the incinerator line will take place. We've reached out to the SOC. Bob Huff was very familiar looking at those pipes and the conditions, who can make it determine whether there's a breach or not a breach and so forth. And that videotaping is scheduled end of this week, beginning next week. Neighborhood meeting is scheduled next Wednesday. And depending on how things go with the videotaping and so forth, Avalon Bay is hoping, if possible, to start the actual demolition on Thursday, the day after the neighborhood meeting. And that work would start on the shorter buildings closest to the parking garage, and then they would work toward Franklin Avenue, and they anticipate the demolition taking approximately a 4-month period to complete.
Just a note on that, Thursday's the first day of school, and I don't know if there's been outreach yet. We should have talked about it when the superintendent was here, but it would be great to get in touch with the community park principal, and they have an active email list, even though the homerooms haven't been, or the room parents haven't been set up yet, to get the word out to the school community so that they can alert the families both of the neighborhood meeting and that the work is going to be starting on Thursdays, that Thursday.
Possibly, right.
Right.
Okay, we'll follow up with that. Also, I wanted to report good news, and that is the final paving of Moore Park in Van Deventer is scheduled to occur on Wednesday and Thursday, and if needed, on Friday this week, and that project will be completed. If you've driven the roads, you can see that the manholes have been adjusted to their final grade, so it's a little bit of an obstacle course right now, but we're looking forward to those roads being paved. And then finally, last Wednesday, 59 Meadowbrook Drive, the house was removed. Newsy's been working on that project, and today they did the topsoiling, seeding, and final mulching of the lot.
Great, thank you.
I'll just give a real brief report on our Access Princeton. In the first 20 days that they've been in operation, so from August 5th through August 25th, they had 81 issues that were opened, and 77 of those issues were closed and resolved. We don't have a specific number yet on the phone calls, but most of those are coming in through phone calls, some through the website and other ways as well. They also have gotten 281 page views on the website just since August 9th. So it's really taken off. We haven't even done the full launch of it yet. The official full launch is September 18th. So we'll keep you informed as that goes on as well.
Thank you.
Mayor, could I ask a follow-up question to Mr. Kaiser on the flood lot on 59 Meadowbrook? So grass was planted? Is that
correct? Where the house was removed, it was topsoiled, and grass was planted in that location.
And that's what it's going to be, a grass lot? I mean, I guess I asked privately about how the decision would be made as to what would happen at that property. I think there is a risk. We've seen the pictures of when it floods, and there's a question of who will maintain it. It's an isolated lot, not, in terms of public works or rec, who will be mowing the lawn, and why we're not going to some alternative natural grasses and whatnot that would deter and certainly keep any children away from the dangerous water.
At this point, we're just simply looking to stabilize the property If we want to go in another direction, we certainly can with wildflowers or different type of grasses. Preliminary plan at this point, Public Works has said that they can cut the grass, the front portion of that property, and I've spoken with the neighbor that's located on the southern side of Harry's, tributary to Harry's Brook, and she has expressed an interest in doing an adopt-a-park and cutting the grass on that side, and that, of course, would require a formal agreement with council that council would need to consider.
And I'd be happy to put together, I mean, it is, everybody knows, it's across the street from my house, but I could put together a neighborhood meeting on my block, and I know there's been a lot of neighbors who've approached me who would be possibly interested in a simple adopt-a-park, not something that requires a ton of maintenance, but, it's, the neighborhood is extremely appreciative, having seen the number of people who've had their lives really wrecked living there. And so I'd be happy to work with engineering or public works in setting that up and trying to figure out what the best route forward would be. Okay, thanks.
Actually, if I can add, just piggybacking off of Ms. Monzo's comments about Access Princeton, the Public Works Committee also discussed staffing level and how Access Princeton might impact, and also the requested service levels that we've been getting from the community. So we're in the process of reviewing that, and we'll probably have a recommendation later this year in preparation for next year's budget cycle. So just to let people know that.
Thank you. Okay. I think that's the end of the reports, so we'll move on to resolutions. The first is the ASME contract, Resolution 14-230, and Ms. Monzo, do you want to walk us through the highlights of this contract?
Sure. The contract for our Public Works employees, they were two separate contracts with the two separate municipalities. Those contracts both ended at the end of 2012, just in time for consolidation, and since we've consolidated at the beginning of 2013, we have not had a contract. But we had a lot of issues to look at, particularly since we were bringing together the two departments, and the biggest one of those being the harmonization of salaries. We had like titles and like job duties and different salaries for the individuals that were in those positions. So what we looked at and ended up with here is a 4-year contract, which is, I think, is good. It runs from 2013 to 2016. The harmonization that we did was in each of the title categories that were similar, or that they're doing the same job, but they might not have had exactly the same title. So we are harmonizing the titles and then also harmonizing the salaries. The total cost of the harmonization is about $128,000 over the 4 years of the contract. And in this instance, which we haven't done in other areas, we spread that harmonization over the 4 years. And there's a chart in the contract that shows exactly how we would do that. The rate increase for those that aren't getting any harmonization is the 1.5% per year over for each year of the contract. And then some of the things that we've changed in there have been pretty significant, and we thought this was a very good time to approach this and get these items back, if you will. So we eliminated the step plan for the Public Works employees and instituted really just ranges in each title, so that as an employee goes throughout the years and maybe someone retires, we can bring in an employee that maybe doesn't have as much experience and at the lower end of the range, and then there's no automatic increases that in addition to across the board increases that happen each year. So eliminating the steps is good. We eliminated longevity and made that consistent, and then we made several other benefits consistent with our personnel policy manual for the rest of our employees. And that had to do with the vacation schedule and the sick leave accrual, and then terminal leave and sick buyback. So all of these things were a real give and take on both sides, and I think they're very happy with the contract, and we were too. So this is why we've presented it to you, and I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Are there any questions from council? Nope. Okay, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Ms. Krummeller. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution passes unanimously.
And thank you for
Yeah.
negotiating that on our behalf.
Yeah, I know that it
thanks.
took a lot of time, which represented a lot of work, so thank you. And I think it'll be great for the department to be operating under a single contract. The next is Resolution 14-231, approving the Teamsters contract. And Ms. Monzo, you want to lead us through this one as well?
I sure will. This is a much smaller union, obviously, than the last one we were talking about. So this is for our communications officers, our dispatchers. And again, we were able to get a 4-year contract, so 2013 through 2016. We do have a small amount of salary harmonization in there as well. The annual increase is 1.75%, except for the third year, which that was a 1.9%. But it would seem very reasonable for some of the other things that we got back as well, including making many benefits consistent with our personnel policy manual in terms of the sick leave payout that we eliminated, the eye care reimbursement that was eliminated, and we eliminated longevity as well. So the step plan, there still is a step plan, but what we ended up doing was increasing or adding additional steps with smaller increases in between each of those steps. So that makes, even though they will get an automatic step each year until they top out, it takes them a lot longer to top out, and we've gone to 10 steps in there. So and it's not quite as large of an increase each year. So again, this I think they're very happy with the contract, and we are too. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions you have on this one.
Any questions on the Teamsters contract? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Krummeller and seconded by Mr. Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The Teamsters contract also passes unanimously, and thank you again, Ms. Monzo.
Thank you.
The next resolution, 14-232, is approving 2 new police hires. Ms. Howard, did you want to say something about this?
Yes, thank you. It's really a historic moment, actually, because these are the first hires of the new department, and these officers will be the real face and future of our new department. So it's exciting. The Public Safety Committee in particular is excited about these 2 candidates and the diversity and breadth of experience they'll bring to the force. They have experience both in law enforcement and in involvement in the community and with youth. And I just want to note that we've been very conscious about the size of the force and balancing what are really dual imperatives. We want to achieve the consolidation goals, savings goals, and manage the size of the force, but of course we're very committed to maintaining and strengthening law enforcement in our community. So the reason these 2 are coming forward now is that given retirements in the force, these hirings are necessary to maintain the size of the force, the current size of the force, and we're excited about these two applicants and look forward to introducing them to the community.
Did that one be followed by a motion, or?
To move the resolution.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Howard and seconded by Mr. Liverman. Were there any other questions or comments by members of council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution passes unanimously, and we'll have both candidates at our next meeting on September 8th to swear them in. Is that right, Chief?
Yes, Mayor, that's
Okay,
great, thank you.
Terrific. The next resolution, 14-233, place-to-place liquor license transfer number 1110-33-005-002, Aston's Jazz LLC, DBA Mistral Elements.
So moved?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Krummeller and seconded by Mr. Liverman. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution passes unanimously. Next is Resolution 14-234, PSA for Miller, Porter, and Muller for Raphael and Sarah Siegel versus the Princeton Planning Board for $25,000. Is there a motion?
I have a question. Can we,
But just one second. It's moved by Ms. Krummeller and seconded by Mr. Miller, and then there's a question from Ms. Butler.
what I would like to do is offer an amendment to have a notification when they've reached 80% of the 25,000?
That's a good
Can we
idea.
just make that a standard part of our contract? I feel like we talk about this every time.
Yeah, I think you have brought that up, and that's my fault for not
Well, now
getting
you're
the
in
word
big
out
trouble. Okay.
more loudly and clearly. So, yeah, I will make another note of that, and I will try to follow up better than I have in the past.
Thanks.
So there's a motion to amend it to add the 80% notification. I assume that was a motion by Ms. Butler?
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and now we need to vote on the original resolution as amended.
I think it's
All
been
in
moved.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next is Resolution 14-235, Mamoons Princeton LLC, 20 Witherspoon Street License Agreement for an awning. I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Howard, seconded by Ms. Krummeller. Are there any questions or comments? Ms. Butler?
My question is, was this approved by the HPC? I know they spent a long time on the Mamoon storefront. The awning?
I thought it was.
The awning was approved?
oh.
The existence of the awning? I
No,
just
I don't
can't-
remember hearing about the awning either, but
But I know HPC spent a lot of time on the appearance of the storefront, and so,
I don't know if HPC approved it. I know the planning board specifically dealt with the awning because this was a condition of the planning board's approval, but I don't know about HPC.
Okay.
what is this exactly?
All I know is what we got from Lee Solo, but I gather as part of the approval, there is an awning. It projects into our right-of-way. So they do need basically permission from the town to have the awning projecting over the right-of-way. And my understanding is that this was done fairly routinely in the borough. There are other stores that have that same situation. So it's a fairly standard agreement that we put together. But that's all I know about it.
Okay, thank you.
There's a motion and second already on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Are there any abstentions? All right, the resolution passes unanimously. Next is Resolution 14-36. I'm going to make sure I'm reading off the right agenda here. Reading off my old one. 14-236, rejecting bids and authorizing rebid, telecommunications antennas, municipal building. Why don't we take both of these together? Resolution 14-237, rejecting bids and authorizing rebid, telecommunications antennas at the fire station.
Actually, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Okay, do them separate.
Can we, no, I think, I'd like to ask that we do them separately, because as to the first one, I think the recommendation is to reject the bids and then authorize a rebid. But I'll let Mr. Kaiser address the second one with respect to the antennas on the fire station, because I think the recommendation now has changed and is not.
To
was
just
reflected-
reject, right,
To just
okay.
reject and not reauthorize the bid, but I'd like to let Mr. Kaiser address that.
Okay, so let's go, and we'll just take the first one then, 14-236.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Simon?
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Liverman. Are there any questions on this one? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that resolution passes, and then I'm going to turn the next one over to Mr. Kaiser.
Yes, regarding the Harrison Street firehouse, there was some question as to whether we should be entering into a minimum 10-year lease on that particular property, not knowing what the future holds. We took a look at the lease agreements and so forth, provides for that minimum 10-year period. Took a look at the investment that the successful bidder would have to provide to the property, which would include changing the staple, doing structural work to support the new steeple that would go on the roof, as well as to provide emergency generator and other supporting facilities in the property. And the thinking is that a cell provider really wouldn't be interested in making that type of investment unless there's a 10-year period. So in which they would have a lease. So I guess we really need to think about this as to what the future of that property would be, as to whether we want to go ahead and bid it out or not. Knowing how long it normally takes to make those type of decisions for properties, I don't know if 10 years will be a reasonable period or not.
Okay, so is the recommendation then to just reject the bid?
Well,
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
will that impact cell service for people in that area? Is there some other tower that will take up the slack?
No, not at this time. The reason we're recommending rejecting at this point is just to give us an opportunity to discuss whether we want to go ahead and bid this out at this location with a 10-year minimum lease. The minimum bid requirements at each location is $30,000 a year with a 5% escalator per year up to the 10th year, and then the possibility of continuing up to 20 years if the municipality so desires. So a significant amount of income would be realized to be better than $300,000 per location over that 10-year period.
Yeah, I was at the agenda meeting when this came up, and I was one of the people, or I guess that voiced their concern over any property that we have to go into a 10-year lease deal unless we know exactly what we're doing with the property. Because what happens is the deal that we would go into is basically we really couldn't touch the equipment once it's put in place for 10 years. And that seemed to me like a long period of time. I thought that...
No, I don't disagree with that. I mean, it seems like we have a lot of properties in play, and we want to have the flexibility to look at the best possible use. I'm just wondering if there's not a cell tower communications antenna, will that impact residents?
Yes, the reason they want to install the antenna there is because the area is not properly covered. So if we're not interested in working out or bidding this particular location, they will look to private properties to provide this type of installation.
But this is, the other thing is we're just voting to reject the bids, and we're leaving open the possibility of potentially we could go out for a shorter time bid or something else. It's just we don't want to go out for another 10-year bid without thinking about the implications of that first.
So in terms of this resolution, are we basically amending it to strike in the resolution sections 2 through 5, just keeping section 1 to reject the bid?
I'm just pulling up the resolution now, but that sounds right.
I'll certainly move that amendment.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So the resolution has been moved as amended by Mr. Simon and seconded by Mr. Liverman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So the resolution to reject the bids for the fire station just passed. Next is Resolution 14-238, 2014 sewer adjustment for the First Baptist Church of Princeton.
I have to recuse myself.
Okay. I'll move it. Moved by Ms. Howard.
Second.
And seconded by Ms. Butler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and passes unanimously except Mr. Liverman recused himself. And the next resolution, 14-239, 2010 sewer refund.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Liverman
Second.
and and seconded by Mr. Simon. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution passes unanimously. Next is 14-240, traffic signal agreement, Route 27 and Washington Road, Van Dievener Avenue. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Howard and seconded by Mr. Liverman. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution passes unanimously. Next is a PSA, maintenance of tax maps, Gregory Sandusky, PE, PLS, for $14,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Liverman and seconded by Ms. Kremiller. Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution passes unanimously. Next, I recommend we take these next several resolutions as a block. 14-242, PSA, Community Grants, Planning and Housing, CDBG grant application, $10,653. 14-243, PSA, Community Grants, Always Safe Sidewalks, $12,998.75. 14-244, Birch Avenue Grant Application Resolution Authorizing Application. 14-245, Birch Avenue Grant Application Resolution Identifying CDBG Officer. 14-246, Birch Avenue Grant Application Resolution Adopting Citizen Participation Plan. 14-247, Birch Avenue Grant Application Resolution Approving Grant Management Plan. So moved.
I actually have a question.
Okay.
In the version of 245 that I received, there was a blank for who shall be designated.
For the officer?
Yes.
I think that's Mr. Kaiser, isn't it?
Yes, it would be myself.
Okay.
As the fair housing officer. Okay, because that's, I just have a, does everybody else have the same thing where should be Mr. Kaiser filled in there? In 245?
I would be responsible to manage the program. And in terms of the affordable housing officer, that would be our current affordable housing officer, Christy Peacock.
Chrissy Peacock. I think that's more appropriate then for this space. So it would be Christy Peacock with that yellow boxes in that resolution.
All right, so I'm going to propose amending that resolution for that, to put her name there.
Or clarify it. Yeah.
Yep, that would be fine.
Second that.
Okay. So all in favor? It was moved by Mr. Simon and seconded by Ms. Howard.
Aye.
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 All right, any opposed? Okay. And then let's move it, the whole thing as a block. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the resolution's passed, and good luck on that grant application.
Thank you.
Next is PSA Accredited Environmental Technologies Incorporated for asbestos inspection, 472 Stockton Street, for $1,520.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Simon and seconded by Ms. Howard. Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The resolution passes unanimously. Last resolution, 14-249, approval of sidewalk replacement contract, T. Fiatakis Construction, for $33,418. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Howard, seconded by Mr. Simon. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution passes unanimously. Now we come to our public hearings. The first is ordinance number 2014 of the Mayor and Council of Princeton concerning salaries and compensation of certain personnel of the municipality of Princeton. And this ordinance concerns the salary ranges. So we'll start by opening the public hearing for this ordinance. And seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Are there any comments or questions from council, or is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Butler and seconded by Mr. Miller. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Mr. Miller? Yes. Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the ordinance passes unanimously, and that now allows us to vote on the salary resolution 14-250. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Krummeller and seconded by Mr. Liverman. Are there any comments or questions? Ms. Butler?
Mayor and council salaries have been removed from this resolution, so is that, it's going to go on the agenda later? Is that?
Right, yeah, I think that we had discussed in personnel and, can't remember if it came up in council, but I think there was a desire to be able to get to staff some certainty. I think actually, Ms. Butler, you were one of the people who appropriately made this point, that it was important now that it's, we want to do this, better to do it in August versus September for the staff. And I think for the mayor and council salaries, it's probably better to do those in September rather than August. So we'll have that come at a subsequent agenda. And also, those are not, the mayor and council salaries are not covered under the ranges typically anyway. I think last year we separated that out. So it's not atypical to do it separately.
But they were covered under the salary resolution in the past, right?
Do it at the, in December when you do kind of a final adjustment if there were any other salaries, different people hired or changes in status. So at some point you have to do it.
I would recommend to council that we not take that vote in August, especially since it hasn't been noticed.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I just thought it was a point worth making for the public record.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you. That's a good point.
Simply also for the public record, Ms. Manzo, I had asked you about the year-over-year comparison on the construction column. Do you want to just explain that, just for the public record, I guess? And actually, my question was specifically that there appear to be a few construction officials who are getting, on a percentage basis, larger increases year over year, but there's certainly a reason for that, and if you'd like to explain that.
That's correct. I think in the memo that I had provided, it said that there were, I believe it was 10 other individuals that got other adjustments, and so the employees in the construction department, those that are inspectors or subcode officials, we gave them a larger increase, but at the same time increased their hours from 35 hours a week to 40 hours a week. They have quite a heavy caseload that they're working on, an inspection load, so the work is there. They agreed to increase the hours that they work every week, and we increased their salary. And it wasn't a one-for-one either. I think they increased their hours something like 14%, and the increase that they got was something less than that. I think it was 10%.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. All right, I think this has been moved. Did somebody move this and second it already? Yes, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Salary resolution passes unanimously. Next public hearing is an ordinance amending no parking zone except within designated stall markings in the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, first I have to open the public hearing, and seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. It's been moved by Mr. Liverman and seconded by Ms. Howard. Are there any comments or questions on this ordinance? Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, and the ordinance passes unanimously. Next is an ordinance authorizing abandonment of a sanitary sewer line and vacation of a sanitary sewer easement on Block 28.03, lots 47.01, 47.03, 74, 76, 77, 78, 82, 83, 89, 100, and 102 of the tax map of Princeton, and mandating connection to replacement and new sewer lines.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Howard and seconded by Mr. Miller. I'd like to open the public hearing for this ordinance, and seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And the ordinance passes unanimously. Next is an ordinance creating a no parking zone on a portion of Markham Road and amending the code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974. I'd like to open the public hearing for this ordinance, and seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Miller, seconded by Ms. Butler. Any comments or questions? Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next is a bond ordinance providing for general parking utility repairs in the Spring Street Garage Emergency Power System in and by Princeton in the County of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $95,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $95,000 bonds or notes of Princeton to finance part of the cost thereof. I'd like to open the public hearing for this ordinance. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion? So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Howard, seconded by Ms. Crummiller. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next is an ordinance by Princeton concerning loud, continuous, or excessive noise, and amending the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. I'd like to open the public hearing for this ordinance, and seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Crummiller and seconded by Mr. Miller. Are there any comments or questions? Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next ordinance is an ordinance by Princeton concerning recreation and parks and similar public places and amending the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And even though this is going to be carried over, we still need to hold the public hearing this evening.
Well, no, I think you already opened the public hearing, I don't recall at which meeting. You carried it to tonight. You're further carrying it to September 22nd.
Okay.
So, there's really nothing for you to hold tonight. I would just announce the date and time when you will be continuing the public hearing. I mean, I know it's listed on the agenda, but I would still make that public announcement.
Okay. And do we need to make a motion to do that, or we're just going to do that?
I think you
Okay.
can just carry it to September 22nd at 7 p.m.
Okay, terrific. Next, we have an ordinance introduction, an ordinance concerning mid-block crosswalks within Princeton, amending the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1972. Is there,
I'll move it.
moved by Ms. Crummiller
Second.
and seconded by Mr. Simon. And are there any questions about this ordinance at this time?
Why, yes. Do you want to talk about it, Mr. Kaiser? Why are we ordinancing our mid-block crossings?
This is really a housekeeping ordinance. We reviewed the former township codes, former borough codes. We found that some of these locations were included within the ordinance, others weren't. So it was just simply to unify the two ordinances and also pick up those locations that weren't previously included for whatever reason.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions at this point? Okay. The ordinance has been moved and seconded for introduction. Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I would just like to point out that the backup to this ordinance is wrong. If you open the backup to the ordinance, it relates to a bond ordinance for parking equipment.
What? Not the one I have.
On
Yeah.
what's available online, I think is what Council President's going to. It goes to a memo from Bob Busheye on something unrelated.
It actually, it links to Bob's memo, but then the correct ordinance is attached.
I understand that.
Yeah. I
We'll
noticed
look
the
into
same
that.
thing.
It's very bizarre.
Fortunately, the ordinance was clear enough.
Okay. Well, if there was a memo that went with it, we can probably get that cleared up and get that sent out before September 22nd. You just loved your memo so much.
I was looking for it here, figuring there was going to be a question. Now I know where it is.
Okay. So the public hearing for this ordinance will be on September 22nd, 2014. And finally, we come to our consent agenda, which contains items of a routine nature which are approved by a single vote. Before I read through the list, are there any items that any member of council would like taken off the consent agenda? Okay. Item A, bills and claims. B, maintenance performance guarantees. Hall Building Corporation, Princeton Community Park Pools and Recreation Facility, release of performance guarantee and waiver of maintenance guarantee. Princeton University Sidewalk Extensions Project, completion time extension to October 31st, 2014. J. Robert Hillier, Olden House, 70 William Street, release of performance guarantee, contingent receipt of acceptable two-year maintenance guarantee. I feel like a teacher at the end of class, in the amount of $21,709.98. Item C, 14-251, resolution, additional newspaper vending machines, the Princeton Sun. D, 14-252, resolution, appointment, board and commissions, Danita Ishibashi Corner House. Item E, 14-253, shared services agreement, County of Mercer and Princeton, public health preparedness in response to bioterrorism, outbreaks of infectious disease, and other public health threats and emergencies. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Simon and seconded by Ms. Crumiller. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda passes unanimously. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Simon and seconded by Mr. Miller. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?